Now, the government has a bright new idea to tackle the migrant crisis. They've promised a new fast-track asylum appeals process that will curb the powers of judges and speed up, they say, deportations for people with no right to be in the UK. The Home Secretary, there she is, Yvette Cooper, on your screens. She announced the move amid continuing tensions, of course, all across the UK over the use of migrant hotel accommodation and, I'd argue now, even HMOs blighting our communities. But is it a workable plan, and will it be enough to quell protests which are ravaging the country over recent months? Let's get the latest now from Olivia Utley, GB News political correspondent. Olivia, are you there? Good afternoon.
So this idea from Yvette Cooper, it would be a pretty radical shake-up from the current plan. At the moment, when an asylum seeker is rejected by the Home Office, when their claim is rejected, they are able to go through an appeals process. Now, this is a long and pretty labyrinthine process, very, very drawn out. First, they can go to these first-tier tribunal judges. They hear the entire case, and if they progress the case through to the next layer, then it goes up to second-tier judges. This whole process takes well over a year, in some cases many, many years. And while it's going on, these asylum seekers are housed in these migrant hotels, which we've been hearing so much about recently. The problem, as Yvette Cooper and the Home Office sees it, and perhaps many GB News viewers will see it like this too, is that some of these first-tier tribunal judges appear to be allowing through all sorts of cases, getting all sorts of appeals cases to reach the next layer of the judicial process, if you like, by over-interpreting some EU law, specifically the right to a family life, which is enshrined in EU law. So there are these judges are allowing migrants through because, you know, their second cousin twice removed, for instance, is residing in the UK. And by the time it passes through that first layer of the judiciary, it's pretty much signed off. The second layer is essentially rubber stamping. And that is why you have a situation where so many asylum seekers are coming to the UK. It's quite likely that they will be able to stay here. Now, what Yvette Cooper wants to do is get rid of that first layer altogether and replace those judges with sort of professional adjudicators, she's calling them. So Home Office employees, it sounds like civil servants, who would be a lot more, have a lot tighter belt, if you like. They would, she hopes, reject far more of those cases at that first hurdle. Now, of course, one problem is, where exactly are these professional adjudicators going to come from? Is it not the case that they may have a similar, perhaps, ideological bent to some of those lawyers who believe that there is, a really strong human rights case for allowing these migrants to stay in the UK? The other problem is that although Keir Starmer has such a massive majority, as we've seen time and again, for whatever reason, he doesn't really seem to be able to get unpopular policies through Parliament. And this popular policy, although it might be popular with the general public, will be unpopular with plenty of left-wing Labour MPs. So this policy is going to, ministers say, go to Parliament in the coming weeks. Now, there'll be plenty of Labour MPs in the Red Wall who are very worried about losing their seats to Reform, who are likely to sign it off, to vote for it, to even make excitable speeches about it in the House of Commons. But it is likely that a lot of Lib Dems and a lot of more left-wing Labour MPs will shout it down. You could end up in a situation where Keir Starmer has to make a U-turn at the last minute.
Interesting stuff. Thank you, Olivia. You talking there posed a sort of fantasy scenario in my head. Who would be the best people to take part in that independent adjudication panel? We don't want civil servants, of course, left-leaning civil servants. How about Nana Akua chairing the panel, Patrick Christys, Martin Daubney, all deciding on asylum claims? I think we've been pretty good nick, don't you? gbnews.com/you'll say. Who would be your choice for the independent asylum adjudication panel? Right, let's get the latest with my panel now. Businessman and commentator Jeff Banks and the Labour councillor Martin Abrams. Jeff, what's your take on this? Okay, I'll tell you mine first, very quickly. Maybe you'll agree with me. I am so sick and tired and bored of all these little plans and these revelations and these leaks, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that here and we're going to speak to France here. And it's just all nonsense. Just stop the boats. Just stop them, turn them back if necessary, get some balls about you and put Britain's interests first.
Using the internet without a VPN, a virtual private network, is a bit like taking to the road without car insurance. All it takes is one unlucky moment to cost you a lot of cash. This video's sponsor is Private Internet Access. They are the VPN to help keep you safe. Click the link in the description below to find out why over 30 million people have downloaded PIA to protect themselves online. A virtual private network is an app that hides your IP address and helps keep your data private. When you're browsing the internet at home, you give up a large amount of data to businesses, to shops, and indeed to social media giants too. Hackers have the ability to steal your personal data with ease, including sensitive information such as passwords, keystrokes, and even your personal photos. Private Internet Access helps protect your personal data by encrypting your internet connection to keep your data out of the hands of cyber criminals. And it's not just hackers either to be concerned about. Information can be censored too. When Canada passed their C-18 bill, social media giants decided to ban news content on their platforms. But PIA can protect your ability to consume the news and content you love. Private Internet Access is available for Windows users, Mac OS, Android, Linux, iOS, and you can use one PIA subscription to protect an unlimited amount of devices. And we've got a huge GB News discount for you too. Click the link in this video's description and you'll get a massive 83% off PIA. That's under £2 a month, the price of a coffee, and you'll get an extra 4 months completely free on top. Also, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee too. Visit piavpn.com/GB News to start protecting yourself digitally today.
I think we have a government at the moment that is absolutely deaf to what the general public are saying. So all of the demonstrations that are happening across the UK, they are clearly saying, we've had enough. There are too many immigrants coming in. They are changing the way of life. They are spoiling the communities which they're deposited in. Enough is enough. And I think this is another cynical ploy by the government to come up with another scheme. We've just heard to get it passed into law would take probably 2 years. It will have fizzled out. Everybody would have forgotten about it. And what we are not approaching is the difference between a genuine asylum seeker and an economic migrant, because that's what the majority of it is, and nobody faces up to it, that we're not actually dealing with people that are fleeing the country because it's war-torn, because of their sexual desires or proclivities. They're not doing that. They're actually coming here, throwing their passports over into the water when they get here, and leaving a life of Riley when they actually get here. And we've had enough. We're funding all of that, and enough is enough, and the government are not listening.
Yeah.
And we need to do what America is doing to actually bring down the drawbridge and say enough is enough, stop them coming.
I mean, just on that, we must be clear that not all, even illegal migrants, are coming here because they're sexual fiends, not at all. But there have been, of course, cases of people staying at hotels who've been accused of certain offences.
I didn't say that.
No?
You become an asylum seeker because maybe homosexuality is banned in the country that
Right, sorry, got it.
So I can actually agree that we should be a home for that, because I don't agree with that. So that's not.
But why is that our problem? Sorry, I misheard you there, but why is that our problem?
It's only our problem if we actually want to be open about people generally in society, that somebody is suffering because they're in a war-torn area. Right. I understand that. And we have always in the past, as a British nation, we've been open to people's kind of protection. Yeah. But now it's gone too far.
Martin, one sort of consequence of this illegal migration crisis is that actually people now, the consensus online anyway, is that people are now fed up with all forms of migration. Legal migration, genuine refugees. People are saying, we've just had enough. I don't care what their status is, whether they are genuine asylum seekers, whether they're here illegally, whether they're here legally with visas. They've just had enough.
Ben, people are angry. I would argue that people are misdirecting that anger. You know, people are angry because they can't get decent housing. They're really struggling to put food on the table. There's a cost of living crisis that is ongoing. And, you know, all we hear from the current government, the previous government is, you know, we're going to cut things back. We're going to reduce things like winter fuel allowance, the welfare bill. And people have had enough. But that is not the fault of migrants coming over here. This country was built on migration.
No, it wasn't.
It was built on migration.
I hear that nonsense all the time. What are you talking about when you say that?
Well, that's...
What migrants built this country?
Historically, the Anglo-Saxons came from Denmark and Germany. The Normans came from France. Historically, this country is reliant on
Sorry, all they
migration.
did was rape and pillage.
Well,
so you can't hold them up as an example.
Jeff, we need migration to this country. Our birth rate has collapsed. Okay?
Well, have more children. We don't want to. We want to keep Britain.
You can't just click your fingers and tell people to have more children. You need to have migration to keep the economy moving.
Martin, that doesn't mean importing swathes of unknown people from the third world with different cultures, different views on women, different ways of handling their lives. I mean, if you want to keep any sense of British identity and the very great nature this country was built on, just because the birth rate's collapsing because people are skint and they can't get houses, it doesn't mean you go and open the doors to Somalia and to every other third world country in the world.
That's not the fault of migrants, OK? The vast majority of migrants that come over here, 70% in fact, are from countries that the UK has previously colonised or been to war with. Let me just make this point, Ben, OK? Because this government and previous governments seem to have a real problem with migrants and asylum seekers coming over here, but we also seem to love creating refugees and asylum seekers from this country. We're supporting Israel at the moment, who are waging a bombing campaign on Iran, who have got 90 million people in that country. That Iran is on the verge of becoming a failed state. Where do we think all those people are going to go?
And whose fault is that?
Where do we think that all those people are going to go to?
Whose fault is that?
If Iran becomes a failed state, they're going to come to Europe.
Hang on a minute.
Israel is bombing Gaza, 2 million people in Gaza. They're trying to ethnically cleanse that country. Where do we think all those people are going to go?
Sorry, I think that's misguided. You've got a population in Israel of 10 million people that were attacked on October the 7th in 2023. 1,000 people were killed. They were taken hostage. If that had happened in Britain and you multiply the equivalent by 10, if 5,000 people had been killed on the shores of Britain in 2023, we would have an uprising here.
Jeff.
That's the equivalent.
Israel is committing a genocide in Gaza.
That's misguided. They are not creating genocide.
They are.
The Israeli people, the Israel IDF, are doing everything they can to protect the citizens of Gaza, even though they've been ruled by a terrorist state for 25 years. The people of Gaza have accepted Hamas to rule them. That's what happens when you let that government get out of control. That's the situation in Israel.
Israel has created a man-made famine.
Don't conflict it.
There is a man-made famine that's just
do not conflict it with the Labour government letting 55,000 people into this country illegally that are getting free national health, free debt, they're getting put up in hotels, they're getting 75 quid a week, free telephones, choose which phone you want. Don't conflict Israel with what this Labour government has done in the last year.
My point is that this country seems to have a real problem with refugees, but loves to create them. If we don't want to create refugees...
We don't have a problem with refugees.
Stop supporting
what we have a problem with is illegal immigration. That's what the problem is.
Right, OK, Jeff, let's just be clear on that. Let's get some facts on the migrations coming over in small boats. That is 5% of all migration to this country.
But we don't know who they are or where they're from.
5%.
We don't know.
The vast majority of migration is legal migration. The vast majority is actually here on student or work visas.
Martin,
okay?
Martin, just to take a breath 1 second. That is not the point that it's just 5% or it's just 50,000 people a year. It's a national security threat because we don't know who they are. We don't know where they're from, what their intentions are. They throw their passports. They throw their passports.
Assessed.
Yeah, but there are asylum applications.
It's costing us £8 million a day to accommodate these 50,000 people. Do you think that's what the British public actually want?
That's a disgrace.
Do the people in the borough that you represent that go out and put in a shift, do a hard day's work, graft, pay their taxes, is that where they want their money spent? Is that where they want the money spent?
In danger of agreement breaking out on the panel, I think it's a disgrace that migrants are housed in these hotels.
Where should they be housed?
Well, they should have their asylums processed as quick as possible. Those that are granted asylum should be housed within our community and assessed on priority of need.
And the rest?
And the rest, if they don't have their asylum applications accepted, then they should be deported.
They shouldn't have any rights.
48% of asylum applications are successful, and that's because all those 48% have clearly got a good case.
They shouldn't have any rights.
Like you mentioned before, they've been persecuted because of their sexuality, or they've come from war-torn countries.
Yes.
You know, we need to have a more humane migration system.
Britain has its own problems.
These people are human beings.
Nobody said they're not.
If there was a war that broke out in this country and we had to flee to another country, we would hope that another country would be a bit more
Martin, you're
welcoming.
making out this country as some sort of selfish hellhole where we have been more than hospitable. We've taken hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians, Hong Kongers over the years. We've opened our doors to many Afghans, interpreters, and so on over the years.
Do you know what? When the Ukraine war broke out, the first thing that we did was we allowed 100,000 Ukrainians with their children to come into this country immediately.
And I fully agree with that.
And everybody, and the country generally agreed with it.
Okay.
What the country generally is disagreeing with is 55,000 young men a year that are actually being imported into this country, and the British people are saying enough is enough.
And a lot of those people, they're not
contributing anything.
Those people
they are mostly
have come from Afghanistan, have come from places like Iraq.
Do you know what, Martin?
Come from places like Iran, all countries that we have been involved in conflict.
Martin,
over the years.
even if that were true, the British public don't care. They don't care. They've had enough.
Well, listen,
that's it. That's what it comes down to. They've had enough.
Immigration is the number one issue facing this country.
How many migrants have you got in your home, Martin? How many houses?
I live in a 2-bedroom house with 2 kids.
Oh, that's convenient, isn't it?
If I had an extra bedroom, then I would have looked at something like the Ukrainian rehousing scheme.
I had a Ukrainian in my house. I gave them free accommodation for 2 years. And do you know what? The man that actually came here did a runner because he actually had to go back and fight. And that was what happened with the Ukrainian that I experienced personally.
Yeah. So
they weren't all whiter than white, believe me.
So, Martin, you've got no room, but it's down to everybody else to find room and to cough up, right?
If I had room, I'd look into it.
Yeah, all right. OK.